My name's Hugh Quinn from Derrylaughing, Crumlin. I was arrested in 1975 for possession of a bomb. I spent 6 years in Long Kesh. Most of it was in Cage 9. We were brought into the Crumlin Road. First introduction to the jail system was been stripped, threw into a bath full of cold water and dunked in it, just really a rough wash in it. I took out and covered in de-lousing powder, which was pretty horrific to tell you the truth. It was coming from Derrylaughing straight into that. Where then 5 of us were taken out and put in the one cell in Crumlin Road in C-Wing, I think it was, for the first night. That's when it really sank in, you were in jail. And none of us had any experience of prison life, so we thought that was it. That's the 5 of us were going to be stuck in here for the next 20 years. Conditions in the Crumlin Road weren't, at the time you probably thought they were bad, but looking back and listening to people who have been in the blocks and that, the conditions weren't bad. They were a bit primitive, like, but they were forcing. There was heat in the winter time and the food was rumbly. If you hadn't food parcels, I don't know how well you'd have survived, because, well, you'd had to survive. The food was just barely edible, but other than that, there was strip search and going to visits was a big handling at that time. They forcibly ripped the clothes off us on many an occasion. And I think it was one Thursday, we were going to Town Hall Street for Remand. We decided we'd all go in our underpants to save them the bother of stripping us. So we got antagonised them. We got our wrists well slapped for that. There was a couple of people badly hurt in that one. It was part of jail life, and you just kept going on. You accepted it. But as I said, compared to the conditions that were in the blocks and that after it, we got it fairly handy. Well, you were in remand when you were in the Crumlin Road. You were remanded every week. You went out every Thursday to Town Hall Street, taken in the back of a van. There was a lot of planning into trying to get out of this and trying to escape out of it, and there were weaknesses seen in it. But as I said, you never were there long enough to be able to get anything coherent through together that would get you out, and there was no point trying someone half-hearted there. Sometimes there'd have been the screws that brought you out there and the screws who were in charge of you in the court did ill-treat you, they did, and like they got their own back. You wouldn't have took it from them. There'd been many today, there was plenty of rows going out to the court. You were in the court for 15 seconds and back out again. And it took you an hour going out and an hour coming back. Kesh and the Crum, they were completely opposites. The Kesh, we had a lot more freedom. We were out from 7 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. There'd be 2 screws would come into the cage and walk around the yard a couple of times a day. If they needed you for a visit or to go to the doctor or whatever, they had to ask the duty officer, that was the person in charge of communicating between the screws and the rest of the cage on that particular day. Crumlin Road was a different thing. They come in and roared, shouted out your name and number, and even though we didn't speak to them in there either, it was a lot harder. You were face to face with them all the time. They were always there, they were always with you, they were always beside you in the Crumlin Road. The command structure in the Crumlin Road would not have been as, how to put it, wouldn't have been as well established as it was in the cages. The simple reason people are in there anything from 6 months to 18 months on remand. There's no continuity of command structure in the Crumlin Road. It kept changing as people kept coming in and people kept getting sentenced and going out. It was different in the cages. You had a lot of long-term prisoners, people who were going to be there for a long time, and the majority of the prison staff, of our staff, command structure, would have been made up of long-term prisoners. There was no point in putting somebody else in a cage or a hut if they were going to be out in 6 months. Time was still your own then. Most people done handicrafts, as I said, done running, exercise. 2 and 3 days a week we had football out on the all-away pitch. And then we had, every day we had a drill, so everybody would learn to march. Showed the screws that we had control in there, that we were over in charge of the people who were who were in there with us, that the command structure was a viable command structure and that we had complete control of the place. Saturdays in that day, you'd watch things like rugby on television, black and white TV. In fact, black and white TV when I went into jail, and when I came out there was colour, which fascinated me. I'd never seen a colour television, and that was only 6 years. Writing letters in the evenings and watching television, and then at night we'd play cards for matches. So many matches got you a Mars bar, so many matches got you. And there's some good crack at it, and I seen us playing cards all night. And another, storytelling was another good thing at night. There's a couple of people in our cage who were very good at telling ghost stories. They'd made the hair stand on the back of your neck. Ever since some of them got out, I think that's what they spend their time at, telling stories. But the staff, our staff, or the command structure, would have set out different chores for people. There was, people had to do, as I said, do the gate to call once for visits. There was somebody had to clean the huts of somebody. There was a wee bit for everybody to do. Everybody was involved in everyday life. Would have spent a good while at physical exercise. People running. There was a bit of a gym there. Would have worked on it. There was always people running. And if you weren't running, you were walking around the yard. There were some people who walked from they got out in the morning till they were locked up at night. We'd always said they were having bother doing their whack, but they were doing it their own way to get out, always trying to break the system. That was an ongoing thing with, I'd say, with the big majority of the prisoners in there were always thinking of getting out. I heard a man one time here saying, who did escape, he said that walking out through the gate would have been great. He said to escape was, and that was definitely right. Everybody would love to escape.
They burst out of the jail. Prisoners started to hijack cars and vans belonging to people living in the area. One man spoke of seeing at least 10 men packed into one hijacked car, their arms and legs hanging out of the windows. Prison staff also ordered the same man to tail...
Anything in our cage would have, at the last 3 or 4 years had I come through, I'd have been part of the staff, so I'd have knew what was happening and what people were planning. A lot of the plans to come up with would have been things that had been tried before, and some of them have been a bit harebrained. Some of the harebrained ones did work in the past, you see, so. There was one person walked out of cage 9 when I was on it, dressed as a priest. Smuggled stuff in and out the same way as, probably heard about the blocks, wee small comms closed up, hid in your body somewhere and carried out and passed to a visitor. A lot of times you passed it to a visitor that they weren't even aware they'd got it. You told them they had it. It was in their pocket, or it was in their sock, or it was somewhere. And there's another way then from, there'd have been, we had some remand prisoners at that time who were moved down to cage 3, I think it was another side of, outside the wall from us. And Paul told from Remand, I got up on table on top of the water tower and done signals with flags. I can't remember the right name for that, but there was somebody down there obviously could read them. And they were sent in Irish as well, which would have left, we had very good communications with most of the rest of the prison. H blocks opened in 76, and we had people who were arrested for minor offences, would have been sentenced to short-term prisoners down in the blocks, working in the kitchens and working on the lorries and that. People we trusted, who brought comms from us down and vice versa, brought them back up again. So it left. The whole jail was in communication at all time with every part of it was, we were also aware of what was happening anywhere else in it. There's good days and bad days in jail, surely, but a lot of people looking back on life in general, never mind even in jail, they remember the good times. There was some good crack, you know, playing tricks on each other, new people coming in, putting them on false escapes and jokes and laughs and things like that. And there was some good crack. There was some great crack at night in particular. Oh, as I said, sitting telling yarns, making potting. That always turned into good crack. There was a couple of us involved in it. Myself and Arthur McNally would have sampled as much as we made. When we've been sitting in the still all night, so there was no drilling for us the next day after making potting. The lowest time in Long Kesh, I'd say, in the cages, for anybody who was in the cages with me would have been the same. It would have been the hunger strikes. Screw came into our hut before opening up time and came down and said to someone, I can't remember who he said it to, told whoever's OC in the hut that time, that Bobby Sands had died. And from there on, and even before that, the morale was low there. We weren't allowed to do anything, and we knew ourselves there's nothing we could do that was going to advance the struggle in the H blocks. The only thing we could do was try and behave and hold on to our status that we had, political status. But that whole period of the H blocks, the hunger strikes, even getting messages up about from prisoners coming up, you know, people when you sending up wee bits of comms and that about the treatment they were getting. It changed it changed prison life to me. It changed life in the cages and forever. Because you knew that was going on the other side of a wall from you. And then the 10 men dying was very, very hard to take. Very hard for everybody to take. You know, you'd looked out and there'd been people walking around the yard, constantly walking, nobody was talking. Nothing to talk about. You felt totally useless. You felt helpless. There's nothing you could do about it. You just had to sit there and take it. And as I said, no one, it was only happening a couple of 100 yards away from us. That would have been the lowest point, my lowest point in jail, lower than... I've seen men who've got news in their girlfriend, well, it happened to me too, but people, married men, their wives had left, was away with somebody else and things like that, and you've seen how low they were. But when the prisoners started to die in the H blocks, people were really, really down. Everybody was, it was an all-time low.
There can be no question of political status for someone who is serving a sentence for crime. Crime is crime is crime. It is not political, it is crime. I just hope that anyone who is on hunger strike for his own sake will think fit to come off hunger strike, but that is a matter for him.
In my mind, Mickey Morgan from Dungan, Pat Thompson, and I was looking back at them and thinking, you know, them two men's in life, doing life, Pat's 30 recommended. You know, I felt a wee bit guilty about leaving them behind, you know, all them people that were doing a long, long time. But when you stepped through that wall then went in and you got searched again, and you always got bad manners off them. I remember talking to a whole lot of different ones. We had a Cages reunion night one night in Belfast a good few years ago, and everybody seemed to have the same story. When you were getting out, the screws were really dead thick and ignorant and hateful to you. But you didn't care. You know, you were on the way out and they weren't going to keep you back for fucking them off. So you said whatever the hell you liked to them. You give 10 times better back to them than they were giving us. But when you're through that whole rigmarole and then they told you that there's going to be another couple of hours and maybe not get out till tomorrow, they were playing in your head. Then you walked out through a turnstile and you're out in that car park. And, it was a great feeling. I remember my mother and younger brother, he drove down. He was still at primary school when I went in, so I think he was, or he just started early. He wouldn't have been long out of it. He drove down from an end. It was a feeling you'll never get the same again. I think even if you had ended up back in jail and get out the second time, the feeling of getting let out was unbelievable. The thing that struck me after getting out was, you got out and after 6 years or 10 years or 15 years, it didn't seem like you were away for that length of time. And you expected everything to be the same. Somewhere in your subconscious you expected everything to be the same as when you went in. And nothing was. Your memory had even, you know, when I arrived home, there's a small field outside of my father's house, and I looked at them and I thought, they've shrunk. You know, everything seemed to get so small. People had moved on with their lives. People I ran about with, people I'd operated with, had got left the movement or whatever and got married and had family. They didn't have time for... It's not that they didn't have time for you, but nothing in common anymore. We were away 6 years from them, and it was very hard. Even when they come down on a visit to you, sometimes it was very hard to get something to talk about for half an hour. I think everybody that was in jail was affected in some way or another. Most people coped with it fairly well, but there's a good few didn't. There's a good few people who, as I said, they're still in jail. But they got out after a long term, even the length of time I was in, 6 years. You get out and, as I said, everything has moved on. Like, I was playing under 21 football when I went in, and then I came out, I was through onto our senior team, and even things like that, and you didn't even know half the people on the team. you had to start getting to know people again. Although some people found that very hard. I was lucky. I had a family who were totally behind me and everything I'd done. And they were there for me. There's other people got out with maybe their family, elderly, someone dead. Everybody, life had moved on. We're sitting now, there was a pub. But I came into it the day after I got out of jail, and there was one brother of mine with me, and two brothers, and the fella behind the bar, and I said there's playing a game of pool, I'd buy a drink, and I bought everybody a drink and went up and gave £1 across the counter to the barman. And he stood looking at me and he says to me, "Where the fuck were you?" And I thought the pound would have got the drink. I didn't realise that I had no change out of £5. So them things had moved on as well. You know, you had a lot of catching up with every aspect of life.